This is the Spark N5 PlayStation game controller. One gamepad controlling 3 generations of PlayStation, with sleek RGB lighting, great battery life, and an awesome form factor that fits perfectly in the hands. We're going to see how this controller pairs up with PlayStation 3, PlayStation 4, and of course, PlayStation 5. So let's jump right in and check out the Spark N5 game controller. Out of the box, we got our essentials. You will find a USB-C cable, a phone dock, the USB PlayStation 5 adapter, and of course, the controller. Now, the controller has a great feel to it, with the deep ridges in your hands to fit comfortably around the controller. I especially love the trigger buttons for L2 and R2. They got a good amount of resistance to them, while the bumper pads have a satisfying click. For those competitive players, we also have paddles on the bottom of the controller. And did I mention this controller uses the coveted Hall effect joysticks and triggers? So we don't have to worry about any potential stick drift issues, which is something that has been happening with the DualSense controller. And honestly, all controllers should be using the Hall effect. That should just be the standard by now. I don't know if there is a petition for this yet, but by God, I would sign that. Now moving on, another key button on this controller that really sets it apart is this right here, the turbo button. Now this button allows for a couple key features of the N5 Spark, but we'll get to those in a moment. Let's quickly discuss what it's like connecting this controller to the PlayStation console. Thankfully, it's a pretty seamless process. And let's start with the one most people are probably going to be using, and that's the PlayStation 5. First things first, you're going to want to pop into the controller settings on your PlayStation 5. Simply head to Settings, Accessories, Controllers, and switch the console's communication method to use USB cable. After that, go ahead and insert the PlayStation 5 wireless adapter and converter into a USB slot on the PlayStation 5. Hold down the button on the USB adapter for about 3 seconds until you notice the lights flashing. After that, go over to controller and hold down the share button and that middle Q button on the controller for 3 seconds until those lights start flashing. After that, the controller should sync up to the adapter right away. You may notice the controller lights turn off, so simply turn your controller back on with the press of that middle button and you should be good to go. And you can see here on my PlayStation 5, it is now connected as a DualSense controller. Jumping in and playing games on the PlayStation 5, they just feel great. The N5 Spark has built-in motors for detailed vibration, and a couple key features with this controller that I absolutely love is the adjustable vibration settings that you can actually adjust on the fly using the controller. Holding down the turbo button and pulling the left stick either up or down can quickly and easily adjust the vibration intensity. Look for those 3 blinking lights so you know the function went through correctly. Now what about the fancy RGB lights that are on this controller? Well, if you'd like, you can actually customize and adjust those as well. Simply pressing the set button on the bottom of the controller, tapping on that will actually adjust the RGB lighting to this controller. And if you'd prefer to not have the lights flashing at all, you can actually hold down that set button for 3 seconds and this will completely turn off those colors on the controller, aside from the indicator lights as we can see here. Now you're probably noticing the key factor of this controller is having this level of control without the use of software. It's absolutely huge. And speaking of features that can be programmed right from the controller, let's talk about the turbo setting and the macro keys. Starting with the turbo settings, this could be huge for anyone playing a third-person or first-person shooter and wanting that competitive edge. You can use the turbo button to make any button press automatic. Now what do I mean by that? Well, here I am playing Control. Pressing down on the trigger button shoots my weapon once, but holding down the trigger button, then pressing down the turbo key, it automatically switches this trigger to auto mode. Now take a look. One press and the weapon is firing the entire clip. Holding down the trigger button and pressing the turbo button again can also switch it to a semi-auto mode. Pressing a third time, well, that will bring us right back to the default. So you can feel free to play around and find what fits best for your playstyle. Maybe you aren't into shooters that much. Maybe you're more into fighting games. Well, using the macro keys feature on the N5 Spark controller is an absolute game changer. Using the back pedal button located on the bottom of the controller, we can actually assign multiple button presses to these buttons. I'll use the N1 paddle to show off what it can do. So as we can see here, I'm going to hold down the N1 button and the set button on the bottom of the controller for a couple seconds until the controller blinks. That's letting me know that it is now ready. After that, I simply lay out a couple combos on Mortal Kombat 1 here. Once I'm happy with that, I can press down on the N1 paddle again to lock in my recorded button presses. Now this is where it gets awesome. Check this out. With one press of the N1 back pedal, I am now fully breaking out an entire combo, all with one button press. I can see this being utilized across tons of games, but to me, fighting games offer the biggest amount of customization. Feel free to play around with the combos and use the macro keys to have these moves ready, literally at your fingertips, with one button press. Now, if you'd like to remove those assigned recorded button presses to the macro button, you can just simply repeat holding down the N1 and the set button. Then after the controller blinks, just press down on that N1 paddle again and it will reset. Easy. Like I mentioned, all these competitive features are programmable and customizable right from the controller. No logging into separate computer software or leaving your game console to make adjustments. This has to be my favorite thing about the N5 Spark controller, and I only just started to scratch the surface, so I'd love to see what you guys do with these awesome features and what games you would use them on. So right at the beginning of this video, I mentioned PlayStation 3 and PlayStation 4. So let's move on over there and see what it's like using this controller on the other great PlayStation consoles. Now, lucky for us, connecting the N5 Spark to either the PlayStation 3 or the PlayStation 4 is so easy. It's so easy, in fact, it's literally criminal. Just simply grab that USB cable that we have, plug it into the console, plug it into the controller, press down on that Q button, and you're done. That's it. Step A through Z is complete. And all these great features already mentioned will of course work across the PlayStation 4 and PlayStation 3 as well. Now, specifically looking at the PlayStation 3, I think this controller can be the ultimate gaming pad. Because when comparing it to the DualShock 3, that controller is small and not the most comfortable in my hands. So having something like this, playing those coveted PlayStation 3 games, it's an absolute massive win. And the best way to experience PlayStation 3 games. So there we have the QRD N5 Spark controller with adjustable vibration, customizable RGB lighting, auto turbo buttons, and the ability to assign multiple button presses to one button using the macro controls. This is an ultimate gamepad for 3 generations of PlayStation consoles. And if you yourself are interested in picking one up, head down to the link in my description and order yourself the N5 Spark controller. Thank you all for hanging out with me through the video. If you love all things PlayStation, be sure to check out the channel, as that's exactly what we love to talk about over here. I'll catch you all in my next video, and as always, happy gaming.